All right, we asked you guys for some fan questions. We got a ton of them. We narrowed them down to 5. Some of you are still angry, but not everybody. So let's get to the first one here from Tina. Tina says, why does it seem like all of our games are so intense? My neighbor's probably going to call the police on me if I keep yelling at the TV like this. Ben? Why are the Lions playing so many close games?
It's because it's our team, and you're so emotionally invested. I was watching there was another close game over the weekend, and I just wasn't into it, and I'm like, it only feels like our games are so intense because we're so attached to this team, we're so hungry. There's really no difference in like the gameplay. Sometimes you see another blowout, and you're like, why can't we just get the easy layup like other teams? But sometimes, I mean, it felt like the Bucs game wasn't as close. Yeah. As the score really reflected.
Dude, my question is, what's the neighbor doing? Put the game on.
Yeah, Tina, your neighbor is yelling way too loud to hear you yelling, right? Yeah. I think the Lions games have felt so intense because the Lions aren't a dominant team. Their defense is going to make some plays, but also going to give up some long touchdown drives. So this isn't a team that's
the playoff, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody's good.
We're so hungry.
Yeah, I'm starving right now.
Yell at your TV and don't worry about it, Tina. All right, Martel wants to know, what changes will the Lions defense make in preparation for the 49ers next week, Ken?
Well, I think that they're facing an inferior quarterback, and so I think they just got to focus on shutting down Christian McCaffrey. I don't think Brock Purdy's really going to beat them, especially if Debo's out. It's all Christian McCaffrey all day. Focus everything on that guy, and you might have some success.
I think the Lions finally bring back a secret weapon that they've been getting ready for this game. I think James Houston comes back, plays, and records 2 sacks.
Wow, 2 sacks.
I'm calling it.
I think the Lions defense is preparing for an opposite quarterback this week. Last week you had Baker Mayfield, who's a guy who's going to make a huge play and also a backbreaking mistake. This week you've got a guy who's very steady. You know what you're going to get from him, and he's probably not going to give you that big mistake. So like Ken said, Christian McCaffrey, the key there is wrap up. Lions linebackers are going to be very important in this game. You cannot miss a tackle against Christian McCaffrey because he might take it 75 yards on that play, and you just can't afford to do that. So wrap up Christian McCaffrey and contain Brock Purdy, and you'll be okay. Doug wants to know, do the Lions have a viable shot at beating San Francisco on the road with that hot and cold defense? Ken, they got a shot, right?
For sure. You make it to this stage, you have a shot. I mean, why wouldn't you have a shot? Come on, it's the NFC Championship.
Come on, Doug.
You didn't just walk in there.
Yeah,
you beat a bunch of good teams.
There's just something special about this team. They've got the magic going, and that doesn't show up on paper when you're looking at the matchup between us and San Francisco. But I'm telling you, there is something magical going on with the Lions. This is our year, and I can see there's a pathway to beat San Francisco and get there, and I can see them doing it.
Yep.
They're going to do it.
Doug, you asked if they can win with a hot and cold D. The answer is yes, because it could be hot, right? If the Lions force a couple turnovers, get a couple sacks, they're going to be just okay. If it's cold, yeah, you're probably right. They probably won't win. Also, Debo Samuel, status up in the air, that is a big factor in this game because if the Lions don't have to deal with him and Ayuk and Kittle, that would make a big difference. So pay attention to what the 49ers say about Debo this week. All right, Richard wants to know who can replace Vildor and Sutton as quarterbacks.
Me and Ben. Me and Ben are going to suit up this weekend, and we'll probably do just as well as Cam Sutton has done for the last month. Maybe Ben makes one extra stop, but I think we'll be all right.
Oh, man. It's been tough on them, but, it starts up front. They need some help. We need to generate some more pressure, and it'll make those guys look a lot better. Maybe Houston helps with that, but they got to play better.
Richard, there's nobody. If there was somebody, he'd be out there. Do we really want to do the Jerry Jacobs thing again? I don't think we do. All right, lastly, Jason, don't you think this game should be in Detroit considering what happened in Dallas? What Jason is saying is if the Lions win that game in Dallas, they're 13-4, obviously, technically the 1 seed. Ken?
No, we're done with this. We don't know what would have happened, okay? The outcomes would have changed. Stop. Enough of this. We already got our karma on Dallas. They lost. Got our second home game. Time to move on. This was always gonna be the road.
Exactly that. This was the way it was always going to play out no matter what.
Jason, if we would have beaten Dallas, the 49ers would have won their final game against the Rams. They sat everybody and still only lost that game by 1 point. So the only difference is the Lions would have been the 2 seed and would have had to play the Packers instead of the Rams. I don't think we want to change anything that's already happened.
No.
We beat Stafford. Dak Prescott has been on the golf course for 2 weeks. So think about that and smile. All right, that's all our fan questions. So we're going to toss it back to Christy.
I love the fan questions segment. Now I want them like live by Zoom. I think that's a totally next question to Doug. Richard, everyone who's watching the Kool-Aid Korner. Hey, so Derek, like, what's the list of things that you have to write about this week? Is it long? Do you wake up in the middle of the night and just jot down like, oh my God, I want to write about this?
Well, it's so fun writing about all these lines first, right? It's the first time that fans are being rewarded. You go back and right now I'm looking at Dan Campbell's introductory press conference, which we're going to talk about tomorrow. It was 3 years to the date of the game, and he's saying all this stuff, and at the time it sounded crazy, and now we're like, oh yeah, he came here and did that. So, you know, it's really fun to look at it from a big picture standpoint, and then obviously as we get closer to the game, we dive into this actual game. Can the Lions actually do this thing and beat the 49ers and go to the Super Bowl?
I love it. I love it. The coverage has been awesome. The Lions Kool-Aid Korner is my favorite thing that's been going on Local 4 Plus. So thanks, guys, and we'll check back in with you tomorrow.